Just a quick note on codependency and mental health, because I know that this plays a very, very, very important catalyst with mental health as well. Because, especially with bipolar disorder and all that, I know that codependency runs in line with bipolar. That's what they're saying, anyways. I tend to happen to agree with that because we always, whatever it is on the high, you would go to gambling. Well, that's codependency within itself, because you are relying on the external part of winning a lot of money, or that thrill of winning money. Let's just say it's gambling. That it would realistically be part of the mind and a part of mental health as well. And I mean, that's a big thing. Like, a lot of people get, severe depression because their partner's not making them happy. And it's like, well, the only person that can make you happy is you. And I think that if we don't do something about codependency, a lot of men will end up in a bad way, because a lot of men in codependency are emotionally dishonest. So you'll find that a lot of men, I know from my experience dealing with men, they don't like talking about a lot of things. I think that's just a part of the culture, and I think that a lot of men, young men too, are losing their lives. Like, I heard a story the other week that there's people in primary school trying to commit suicide, and these are primary school kids, and they're boys. And I don't understand what is truly going on, because it's now starting to affect our kids too. So it's just learning that the external part of the world, and if it's not making you happy, that's just a part of the mind, right? You have to learn to really say, okay, the inner world, whatever world that is going to make me the happiest. Realistically, if you're an alcoholic, let's just say, that's why back in the olden days, when AA first started, it was all based on having freedom to get well, yeah, and it actually built men to get out of it. And because codependency was massive back in the day. I mean, it still is, but it's just something that's not spoken about, because a lot of men are ashamed of going to AA to get off alcohol or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. You can't force anyone to do that, and time will really tell whether people will get off alcohol and boozing and drugs and all that kind of stuff. It is becoming a big part of life. We've got to stop the whole shaming of it, because when we shame, that's a part of codependency as well. Because when you shame someone, they're going to keep doing it. So if you want to actually help someone, it actually becomes quite difficult, because I can't shame them, but I also can't force them either. So that's where the journey of mental health gets very, very difficult, because it's not up to you, it's up to that person. And I think that that's been the hardest thing for me to watch. A lot of people, including a lot of people in my family, struggle with it, because it's not our journey, it's theirs. So you need to, learn to depersonalize from codependency, especially if we're touching on alcohol and emotional dishonesty. I mean, shit. I always kind of think that emotional dishonesty and repressing them, makes a lot of people become dependent on opioid drugs and all that kind of stuff, just because they can't deal with them and we've got nowhere to put them. And it's like, it really feeds that emotional dishonest society that we're all living in part of. And it really is quite toxic to be a part of. And even I struggle with it myself, because we've got really, what do we do with this mind that's driving us all nuts? So the first thing that we do is we say, I'm not going to partake in codependency anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's very personal and subjective. You cannot control it. It will happen when that person is ready.